Hello again. This is Bill Mervin from AnnieMac Home Mortgage here in our Newtown, Pennsylvania offices. Today on our video blog, we're going to be discussing whether the lowest interest rate is always the best interest rate. But before we begin, I'd like to draw your attention to a link on the blog. Just click on that link for myself or someone on my team to reach out to you. So is the lowest interest rate always the best interest rate? Seems like a loaded question. If all other things are equal, then yes, of course, paying the lowest interest rate would be the best situation. But there are all kinds of scenarios where the lowest interest rate you get up front or that you get quoted to you is not the best. Getting a mortgage is not like getting a car, for example, which is a commodity. You go to 3 dealers, you get the lowest price, you walk out with the same vehicle, and so of course the most important thing in that situation is price. With a mortgage, and certainly we don't want to use any fear tactics or create any unnecessary, fear in buying and getting a mortgage and buying a home. But you only have to go online and look at bulletin boards and look at these different comment sections and some of these sites to see that the experience that people get when buying a home and getting a mortgage is certainly anything from uniform. You've got all kinds of stories about missed deadlines, and my closing was a month ago and we still haven't closed and they're asking me for more items. Or I was promised this and then I got to the end of the process and the numbers were actually this. You might have terrific credit. You might be somebody that says, hey, out of principle, if the numbers change, I'm going to walk away. But as you're getting ready to move your family into a home, or if you've already invested $1,000 for an appraisal and inspections and all sorts of things like that, sometimes that's just not what happens. So the first and most important thing is what you see is not what you always get. So again, whether that's missing contract deadlines, missing closing dates, whether that's just, and it doesn't have to be a bait and switch. It could even just be that the mortgage lender just misquoted certain things. So there are certain protections in place against those things, but it certainly doesn't protect you from all those types of mistakes. The other thing that I think is really important to consider and oftentimes overlooked is the fact that many mortgage people act in a very transactional manner. Their goal is to get you to do business with them. So they may present the numbers or present options that might not be in your best interest, but you're most likely to accept because people think, well, if I get a really low interest rate, it's going to be great. There are all kinds of scenarios where a different loan product or a different loan term might be better. I've had situations where actually going with a higher interest rate but much lower closing costs is better for a person who might not be keeping a home for a long time. They don't want the risk of an adjustable rate mortgage, but there's a very high likelihood they're not going to keep this 10 years or more. And so it might be a difficult conversation to have with a borrower to say, hey, I know you're looking for 3.5% for argument's sake, but if we go at 3.75 or 4%, but your closing costs are $5,000 lower, here's why this makes sense for you in the long term, and we can run through those numbers. So our team tries to act in a much more consultative fashion where we get all the information up front and make not the recommendation that we think is most likely to make you do business with us, but the recommendation that we would do if we were in that borrower's shoes. And so the analogy I like to use is, if you get the lowest price on a transmission, but what you really needed was a timing belt, did you actually get the best deal? Well, of course not. It doesn't help because you weren't given the right product or the right tool or the right part in this case. So yes, interest rate is very important. Closing costs are very important, but there are many, many other factors when getting something as complicated and as involved as getting a mortgage. It's always great to consult with professionals to make sure that you're getting the best overall deal when looking at the big picture. So if you're looking for a mortgage lender with competitive interest rates, individuals that will take the time to get to understand your particular situation and make appropriate recommendations, and a local team that has a track record of delivering on their promises and the timelines, reach out to myself or someone on our team at the phone number listed below, and we'll be happy to help you out.